Hey, welcome to the E-commerce Alley podcast, where we believe that great brands are built on passionate leadership, smart operations, and of course, powerful marketing. I am your host, Josh Coffey, and if you don't know me, I have been helping e-commerce brands generate tens of millions of dollars in revenue through strategic marketing and coaching for nearly 10 years. Now, this podcast has one mission, and that is to help leaders like you grow your vision, your team, and your profits. Now, today we're gonna be talking about love. So if you can hang with me, we're gonna talk a little bit more about that. So happy Valentine's Day. That's why we're talking about love. It is Valentine's Day if you didn't know. And so for all the guys out there, this is your fair warning. If you haven't gotten flowers or chocolates for your significant other or your spouse, then this is that final announcement if you're listening to this, hopefully, in the morning. And for a small fee, you guys, I will remind you of your upcoming anniversaries, your birthdays, for your significant other. I'm just kidding. But happy Valentine's Day. Today we're going to be talking about love. And here's what I mean by that. We're going to be talking about how to design a business around a life that you love, rather than designing your life around your business. Because I remember when I first started my entrepreneurial journey, and this was about 10 years ago, a little more than 10 years ago. And I remember when I first started, that excitement, that just the sheer excitement and thrill of taking that first step. I mean, do you remember that feeling? The feeling when you had that first idea for your business. And then you start telling everybody, and then you start doing the research, and you start living on Google and YouTube, watching all kinds of videos and trying to learn everything that you can about your business. And then do you remember that feeling when you first took the leap? The leap of faith, just head first. Maybe you went head first, or maybe you kind of side hustled it a little bit, and maybe you're still doing that now, but you're side hustling and then you go into the deep end, right? You take that plunge into the deep end of starting your business. And then you remember, then you move from there. You go to the first office, and then you have your first employee. And you know, that first sale, the most amazing sale is that first one where somebody says yes and they buy your product. And usually it's like your mom or your dad or someone that you love or who loves you enough to buy your product, even if they may not use it. And then what happens is we go from trading one boss to now having hundreds or thousands of micro bosses. You know, some are demanding, some are relaxed, and some are as if they're non-existent, like they're not even there. And these are what we call customers. And so you go from working for one boss to now you have all of these customers that sometimes feel like a lot of micro bosses. And then as time goes on, your plate begins to stack. And not stacking in the manner of like, hey, this is Thanksgiving and I'm stacking my plate with a lot of really delicious goodness, but it stacks with things that start to drain you. And then this business that you went in with all this passion and all this excitement starts to become more of a burden. And as time goes on, your plate stacks. You know, at first you're sourcing products and you're coming up with all these grand ideas and the vision for what you want to build for your business and the lives you want to impact and the products you want to release. And you go from these grand ideas for this bright future, and then you realize, oh wait, I have to keep records of my finances. So then you put bookkeeping as another hat. You put on the bookkeeping hat, and then you start patching together your first website. And because you can't afford to hire anyone, and you don't want to be taken advantage of by some freelancer or agency. And so you do it yourself, and you learn the ropes of building your first website. And then you have the big moment, the moment of truth. You have your first hire. You hire that first employee. It's a big leap of faith to do that because that's a big financial burden you're now taking on. And then maybe your second and your third and your fifth employee. And then before you know it, you are the product developer, the bookkeeper, the customer support, the marketer, the HR, and the go-to for all questions kiosk center of your business for the people that you have. And to make things worse, after all of that, according to NerdWallet and their partners' annual report, they state that small businesses with no employees have an average annual revenue for the solopreneurs of $46,978, and 86.3% of small business owners make less than $100,000 a year in income. And so you have all these hats you're wearing and all this burden that you're bearing, and your business has gotten to this point where at first it was this excitement, and then now it's this massive burden and it's burning you out, and you might feel overwhelmed for less than $100,000 a year, with the average being $47,000 almost. And then if you had kids and you had family and you had church and you had community and you had hobbies to that, it quickly shifts from a fulfilling journey to a heavy burden. And in the process of building a business around the life that we want, we end up building our life around a business that we resent. And so that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about reversing that trend. And I want to walk you through a few steps that I have personally been able to do to reverse that over the last few years. And so have you ever had that moment in your life when it feels like life just slaps you upside the head and says, wake up, stupid, this isn't what you want, this sucks? You ever had those moments? You ever experienced something like that? I definitely have. In fact, I remember this one time, my family, we always go to the Outer Banks, and we were down in the Outer Banks. And of course, in the Outer Banks, I'm an entrepreneur on vacation, so of course I had to work, right? So of course I'm working every single morning. I'm like, hey, I'm just gonna work a couple hours or an hour, and then it became 4 hours a day. And I'm spending half of my day on vacation with my family working. And this was a week that we had to run payroll. And I remember logging into our bank accounts in between our checking and our savings. I'm sitting in this beautiful vacation home down in the Outer Banks, and I'm looking at our checking and our savings. In between both accounts, we had $1.06, and it was a payroll week. And I remember looking at that and just feeling, ugh, this is the worst. I do all these things. We have employees and we have staff and we have all these different amazing things that from the outside looking in look incredible. It looks like the life, right? But I have $1.06 to my name inside our business, and I am working on vacation, which is not what I set out to do. And so I remember when that happened, I ended up taking a screenshot of my bank accounts. And I took a screenshot and I saved it in a folder. I have a folder that I call Our Journey, and it's our journey just through life. And I like to save all kinds of just interesting, good and bad things. And so I saved this screenshot on my computer, and I titled the screenshot, Never Again, September, and I forget the year, it was like 2015 or 2015, I think. And so I wrote Never Again, and I took a screenshot and I saved it. Well, a few years later, I was on a trip out in Glacier National Park, not Glacier National Park, I'm sorry. I was out west with my wife. We're in the Grand Tetons, Yellowstone area, and it wasn't more of a trip as more as it was just trying to find Wi-Fi so that we could work. And so all we ended up doing every day on this 14-day trip out west with my dog Maxwell, my wife Kelsey, we're just driving around. We're spending 1 to 2 hours per day just literally driving so we could find Wi-Fi so we could camp. So we could set up and use the internet wherever we could find LTE and have some data on our phone so we could hotspot and we can work. And so we're hotspotting in the middle of the fields of Wyoming and the Black Hills and Montana and all these places. And we're literally driving out of national parks just to take calls and just to park in random intersections where we had 2 bars of phone service so we could work. And I remember looking at my wife, Kelsey, on that intersection, on one of these particular intersections, and I remember it was right outside Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and it was right outside of the Grand Tetons. Beautiful park. We had to drive out just to find this little intersection in the middle of nowhere. So because that's where we found, as we were driving, we were like, oh my goodness, this intersection has 2 bars for phone service. So we pulled over in a ditch and we put on the phone service, and we're sitting there for 2 hours while we're working and we're getting stuff done. And I remember looking to my wife, Kelsey, deep in this wilderness, middle of nowhere intersection. And I said, in the next year, we cannot be in this situation. And so we cannot be doing this. We cannot be broke. We cannot still be not enjoying what we do. We cannot be trying to vacation, but instead of doing that, we end up driving 1 to 2 hours a day just to try to find Wi-Fi. This is the worst feeling I've ever had. And this makes this experience miserable. This is not what I set out to do, not what she set out to do. So something had to change. Well, fast forward a little bit longer, and we did that trip again. And so it was 2 years later, well, we went and we did that same trip. And this time, for those 2 weeks, we got to enjoy our trip. We had minimal contact with our team. And when I say enjoy it, I meant we fully enjoyed it. I spent dozens of hours reading, meditating, enjoying the nature, sitting in my hammock, sitting around the fire, making s'mores under the moonlight. And few times I actually opened my laptop was primarily for me to work on writing my book, thinking and planning vision for the next year. And so that's what this podcast is about, because I have been there. I've been in that position where I felt like our business was this cash-eating, life-draining monster when I set out to build a business that I loved. And instead of my life or the business revolving around my life ended up revolving around my business. And since that moment, I have consistently worked to build a better business, to build a life for not only myself, but the people in our company that is enjoyable and that brings us fulfillment and joy every single day. That I tell our staff, I say, if you say TGIF, and your motto is thank God it's Friday, then you're in the wrong spot. If you say TGIF and you own a business, then you need to fix something in that business. You should be saying TGIM, TGI2, TGIT, TGI Wednesday. You should be saying, thank God it's every day because I have breath in my lungs, I feel fulfillment, I love my work, and I love what I do. Yes, there are components that aren't that fun, but overall, this allows me to live the life that I want. I get to live every single day with purpose. I get to enjoy my family, my friends, my hobbies, and do the things that bring me happiness. And so what I want to do is I want to give you 4 steps in order to create and to begin designing that business around your life and not your life around your business. So step number 1 is I want you to create your perfect day. You know what your day looks like right now. Maybe your day is you wake up and the very first thing you're doing in the morning is you're flipping open your laptop at your home and you're already checking emails. Or maybe you wake up and before you're even ready, you're in your email or you're checking calls or you're checking texts and you're checking WhatsApp and you're checking your inbox essentially for your business. Maybe that's the first thing you do every single morning. And so I want you to look at that and say, is that what you really want? And what I want you to do is create your perfect day. And so here's what I did. When I started, I actually opened up my notes on my phone and I bulleted a list. It took 5 to 10 minutes. And here's what I want you to do. Take 5 to 10 minutes and bullet point, what does my perfect day look like? What does that look like? Is it me getting up and taking my time getting to my office? Is it me not being in meetings? Is it me not doing this? What does that actually look like? And so I wrote this down and I want to read off just a couple things that I had from my list and I saved this. So here's what my perfect day looked like in the first few minutes as I just thought about it. And as I wrote this down, here's what I said. I didn't want to be rushed to the gym. I didn't want to be rushed from the gym to get home and get ready and go to my office. I wanted my evenings and weekends back for friends and family and hobbies and church. I wanted no meetings unless I wanted to be on the meetings. And just to preface this, my average run rate in meetings before this transition was 5 hours per day. I spent 20 hours at least per week in meetings. That is draining. And that was not what I set out to do. And it was not something that brought me joy. Some people love meetings. I'll just tell you, I am not personally one of those. So I wanted no meetings unless I wanted to be in the meeting. I wanted to work from coffee shops and not feel tied to my office. Yes, I can work from a computer anywhere, but it doesn't always work out like that. I wanted to go work at coffee shops and restaurants in different places. I wanted to enjoy 1 to 2 coffees per week or lunches per week with people that I love. I wanted to spend time teaching and educating and coaching e-commerce businesses because that was my happy place. And I wasn't doing that as much as I genuinely wanted to. And so I wanted to spend more time doing that. Like what I'm doing right now, this brings me so much joy. I could film podcasts every day. I could record podcasts. I could create content every day. And guess what? I do. I get to do the things that I love, and creating content is one of those. I wanted to attend events in my community. And so that's just a part of my list that I pulled. That was like a third or a fourth of my list that I pulled for this. But that's what my perfect day looked like. And so the problem was I couldn't do any of those things because here's why. I was constantly working. And every time I wanted to go to that extra event or I wanted to go to that family gathering, I wanted to do anything, it felt like I always had work on my plate. But the problem is there's always the next project. There's always the next thing to do. And so I could never get to the things that brought me joy because I was too busy focusing on the things that I resented and that I felt trapped in. And so like they say, The first step is admitting that you have a problem. So if you can feel that right now, if you feel overwhelmed, if you feel burned down, you feel like you're trapped, then I encourage you to admit, I have a problem and I have to fix it. So step number 1 is to create your perfect day. Now, the best gift that you can give to yourself on this Valentine's Day is to subscribe on YouTube and to leave us a review on whatever podcast app that you're listening on. That is the best gift that you could give yourself, I promise you. Other than maybe flowers or chocolates for your loved one, that's good and all, but subscribe to our YouTube channel, leave us a review. We would appreciate it. Share the love. Share the love, especially if you forgot it's Valentine's Day and I was the one that reminded you. That's the least love that you could provide. So step number 2. I love that music, Dylan. That's great. Step number 2, establish your stoppers. So we establish your stoppers. So once you've identified what your perfect day looks like, then you need to establish what is stopping that day from becoming a reality and from actually happening. And so you've taken a few minutes and you bullet point, here's what the best day in the world looks like for me. Is that me shipping out orders? I don't know. If you love shipping out orders, maybe you'll put that on there. But if it's not, then you need to say, what is stopping you from avoiding that? And let's say you don't want to ship out orders. My perfect day entails no shipping out of orders. I hate shipping out orders, or maybe you're handwriting letters. I hate handwriting letters. Well, then what are the things that are stopping you from not doing that? What are the things stopping that item on your perfect day from happening? And so take a piece of paper or a note and spend another 5 minutes and write down anything that comes to mind. For each one of those bullet points, you say, hey, this is what my perfect day looks like. You need to figure out what's stopping that from being a reality. Because if nothing's stopping, then just change. But the reality is there's usually a stopper. There's something that's stopping that from actually happening. And so I'll give you a few examples. For me, here are my stoppers. Our entire team was coming to me for feedback on everything. And it felt like everything in our business was just straight bottlenecking at me. It didn't matter if it was copy or it was design or it was building a funnel or it was something on the product development. Everything was stopping and bottlenecking at me. So that was a huge stopper. Every meeting required me. And that's why I was in so many hours of meetings every single week. I led every webinar or live stream for our customers, and all the content hinged only on me. Ultimately, huge levels of bottleneck. And so what I decided to do was I decided to identify those stoppers, because unless you identify what's stopping something from happening, you can never fix it. So the first step is identifying that. And once you've identified it, it will then help you to unblock that, right? We're identifying our blockers and we're going to unblock those. And that's going to get us closer to our steps. You can kind of see where I'm going with this. So if I fast forward now, I review only some things. And of the things I review, I spend maybe a few minutes. So there are things that I will review within our team. It doesn't mean that suddenly I don't talk to our team anymore and I don't have any content responsibilities. I still do that. But out of the time that I was spending before doing that and the time I was spending in meetings now is almost non-existent. Almost non-existent, if not some of those things completely non-existent. So a stopper example for you, it might be, hey, the reason I can't do X, Y, and Z in my perfect day is because I'm spending 10 to 15 hours a week on my marketing. And so that's my stopper, but let's dive deeper. And even below that, it's because I spend 6 of those hours or 10 of those hours on Reels and building TikToks and social media. And that's taking 80% of all my time. Or maybe your stopper is, hey, Josh, I'm doing everything. And I don't know what I can outsource or what I can get rid of. I'm bookkeeping, I'm doing new product research, I'm shipping orders, I'm doing handwritten letters with every single order. Maybe those are the things that are stopping you from being able to not work weekends or being able to enjoy more time with your family or being able to enjoy the things that you do within step number 1. And so I want you to spend some time identifying and establishing what are the stoppers, what's stopping that from happening. And there's a great quote by Tony Robbins. He says, where focus goes, energy flows. And so if we don't focus on the bad, because we have to focus on it, we can't ignore it. And if we want to change, we have to acknowledge the bad, acknowledge the blockers, because then we're going to take our focus and our energy. Focus goes, energy flows. As we focus on those stoppers, then our energy will begin flowing toward those stoppers to fix those and to unstop them. I don't know if unstop is a word. It's probably not. I just made it up. We'll roll with it. So that's step number 2, is to establish what your stoppers are. Now, step number 3 is to solve those stoppers one by one. So take all of those things that are stopping you from having that perfect day, that perfect week, that perfect life, and then order them from the most draining all the way to the least draining. And I consider draining things that take a lot of time or just flat out energy. There are things that take a lot of time, but you don't mind doing. But there are things that don't take a lot of time that just suck the life out of you. They just drain you and you just hate them. A lot of people that are more introverted just despise meetings and absolutely hate meetings, even if they're only in 4 hours a week, not 20. And so if that's how you feel and you absolutely despise being in that many meetings and that's the most draining thing, then put that at the top of the list, because then what we're gonna do is we're gonna go down through that list once we have put it in order, and we're going to start to write out 1 to 2 solutions for each one of those. All right. So go underneath and write down 1 to 2 solutions. And here's some truth. The truth is, it is okay. It is okay to let some fires burn. There are things in our business that we do. And sometimes we do things because that's just what we've done. And we've always done it. And we continue to do it because we've always done it. And we just do this over and over and over again. And you know what? Sometimes it's okay to just stop doing it. Let some fires burn. Be okay. If you're spending 15 hours a week on your marketing, maybe your solution is cut marketing hours to less than 5 per week, because then you'll free up 10 hours. Then take those additional 10 hours and begin tackling other important stoppers that are making your life that you desire and the life you want your business to revolve around more possible. So take those 10 hours and start tackling other stoppers. Be okay with not posting every day on social media. Let's say you're posting 7 days a week. Be okay with 2 days a week. Slice it. Be okay with some fires burning, because at the end of the day, oftentimes those fires aren't that deadly. They're not that deadly. And in our mind, we make up all these things like, oh, if I don't do this, this is going to happen. If I don't do this, this is going to happen. And the reality is, usually that doesn't end up happening. So be okay with letting some fires burn. Now, when I did this, it took me about an hour or so, and I ended up with this list of 13 things that needed to happen in order for me to have my dream life, with a business that revolves around my life and my family, and not the other way around. And so I ended up with this big list of 13 massive things, and they were not small. Like, this was like a year-long process. And so because of that, I had a huge list. And then that leads us to step 4. So once we have built our perfect day, step number 1. Step number 2, we have established what those stoppers are. Step number 3, we have gone through those stoppers after we ordered them from the most draining to the least draining, and we have identified 1 to 2 solutions for each one of those. Then step number 4 is to present those. So if you have a team and other leadership, present those solutions to that leadership. And then guess what? Start designing. That's step number 4. Present to your people and start designing. Now, this is a process. From the time that I wrote down those 13 things, and I remember I wrote those down. I was in Glacier National Park, and I'm hanging in a hammock, and I wrote down all those different things. And I remember getting home, and the first thing I wanted to do was talk to our business partner, Maya, and I wanted to say, Maya, this is our roadmap to the life that we want. And I showed it to her, and it was a bomb drop because it required so much change within our business. I mean, we had to completely shift so much. We had to build this whole set that I'm in right now. We had to bring on Dylan for video. We had to transform our business model entirely. But we knew that it would lead to the life that we loved and the business that we loved. And so I showed it to her, and she's like, this is going to take time. And I was like, I know. This is going to take a while. And guess what? It took about a year. It took about a year to begin to even make it almost all the way through those 13 items. It took a process. But you know what? That process was worth it. And now, every day, I wake up, I go to the gym, I see the people that I love at my CrossFit. I get to lead our team. I get to coach our clients. I get to create content 15 hours a week, 20 hours a week. I love it. It's just so much joy to me. I get to enjoy coffee and lunches with people that I love whenever I want. I'm not working till 10 p.m. every single night. My weekends are free for family, for adventure, and more importantly, I'm living my perfect day every single day. Now, yes, there are off days, but for the majority, it's not like that. Every day, I love it. I have a smile on my face from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep. And it's a lot of freaking work. It really is. But it'll happen in phases. It'll happen over time. But the most important thing is that you aren't 1 year from now and still thinking the exact same thing. Still thinking, man, I wish I would have started building a business around my life instead of just succumbing to my life revolving around my business. And so to tie it all together, I'm going to give you a big action item and a big recommendation. And this begins with something that we call a clarity day. And I recommend this to all my clients once per quarter. But if you've never had one of these, schedule at least half a day. It could be less if it's your first time, but I schedule a full day. And I recommend at least half a day where you spend 4 hours, you block it out. And in those 4 hours, you're not checking emails, you're not working on product development, you're not working on marketing, you're not working on your business. You're working on you and setting the vision that you have for your life and for your business. And in this clarity day, you spend time reviewing and reflecting and planning and casting vision. And so everything I talked today, those 4 steps, you will be able to accomplish by simply taking the time, taking that clarity day. And in one clarity day, you would get enough clarity to know the direction that you want your life to go and how to design a business that revolves around your life and not the other way around, because that is ultimately what we want. So here's the truth. You only have one life. And life is too short to own a business that doesn't allow you to live that life with happiness and purpose. So to recap what we've talked about today, step 1, create your perfect day. Step 2, establish your stoppers. Step 3, solve those stoppers one by one. And step 4, start designing. You have been listening to the E-Commerce Alley podcast, produced by the legendary Dylan Counts. You can find show notes for this episode as well as additional resources by going to alleypodcast.com. Don't forget to join the Facebook group, the E-Commerce Alley Podcast, and by going to alleypodcast.com/group, you will get there. So on behalf on our entire team, thank you for being our listener and happy Valentine's Day.
Better days with